Hello and welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lance Wheeler. I'm Vice President of UK Students for Liberty. Before I move on to Rand Paul, I would like to talk a little bit about our group. UK Students for Liberty is a group here on campus whose objective is to spread the message of liberty. A lot of the things you're going to hear tonight from Dr. Rand Paul is a lot of things that our members share the same ideas with. If you hear anything tonight that interests you and you want to get involved, please contact me or one of our officers, and also put yourself on the contact sheet for the email, and we'll put you on the listserver, and then we'll be able to send you updates on what we're doing and what we plan to do. Rand Paul is the son of Congressman Ron Paul of Texas. Ron Paul ran for the president race back in the last race. Rand Paul is an eye surgeon from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He attended Baylor University and then studied School of Medicine at Duke University. Dr. Rand Paul has mentioned many times before that if Jim Bunning was to step down from Senate, he may run for senator in 2010. He is also the president and founder of Kentucky Taxpayers Union. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you, Dr. Rand Paul.
Thank you, Lance, and thank you, Michael, for the Students for Liberty for putting this up on short notice. They did this in about 2 weeks' time, and I think that's very impressive. Now, I'm trying to remember, Lance, was I supposed to say y'all had great parties, or you weren't allowed to? No, very strict. I can't remember what I was saying. Students for Liberty, you guys should really check them out and get involved. I thought this was an AA meeting at first when I came in, and I thought I'd start out with, I'm Rand Paul, and I'm a big blue devil. And because I didn't hear any hissing when he said what to do, so I thought maybe y'all were over the 1992 thing, and that wasn't going to be a problem. In 1992, I happened to be there. We were having a party, we were watching the Duke game on television. Most of my wife's family is from Kentucky, all the UK fans. So anyway, we watch it, and anybody who remembers that shot, UK goes ahead, makes the shot, 1.4 seconds to go. Should I go on? All right, you know what happened in the end. But in the end, the Kentucky shot goes through and our phone starts ringing. So we get up, this is back when you didn't have cordless phones. Your phone had cord, and you didn't have caller ID, and you actually answered the phone. So my wife gets up to get the phone, and about that time, the Lakers shot goes through. And whoever's on the other end hangs up. It took a couple of years for her brothers to finally admit, or one of them to admit, that he was calling to give us a hard time about Duke losing another nail biter. Thomas Paine wrote that government is a necessary evil. What does that mean, a necessary evil? I think we all kind of know that we need some form of government and that all government's not bad. But what does it mean when he says it's a necessary evil? When you say government is a necessary evil, I think it's an important philosophy of government. You have to understand that for every ounce of government you get, you give up a corresponding ounce of freedom. So as government grows, you have to give up something. Now, how do you give up your freedom? You give up your freedom maybe incrementally through an income tax, which is a tax on your labor. So your body and your labor and the fruit of your labor belongs to you, but you give up a certain percentage of that to the government. Is there a reasonable amount of that? Have we gone beyond the reasonable amount? These are some basic fundamental questions you have to ask when you approach government. I like to start it this way. Is government too big or too little? If you argue that government is too big, then how could you ever really be for a tax increase? Now some say, oh, that's crazy. You just absolutely say you never vote for a tax increase. And I have. I've taken that position. And some of the media have said, oh, they accuse me of being an absolutist, of being absolutely opposed to a tax increase, as if that's a bad thing. But we look at government and we say, well, is it okay to be absolutely opposed to things? I turn it around to some of the media and I say, well, which one of the Bill of Rights should we compromise on? Should we be absolutely in favor of the Bill of Rights or just a little bit in favor of the Bill of Rights? What about the First Amendment? To those in the media who say that I'm an absolutist and that being absolutely against tax increases is wrong, what about maybe a little bit of censorship? Maybe a little bit of censorship is okay. I tend to defend the Bill of Rights in an absolute way also. I think the freedom of speech is very important. I think it's very important when you look at the First Amendment to see what it says. It says, Congress shall make no law. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution were written to restrain government, not to restrain you. They were written to protect you from your government. We were fearful of large government. We were fearful of monarchy and of tyranny, and we wrote a constitution that was to restrict our government. What has happened? Some would say, oh, we have freedom of speech. What are you complaining about? There's no problem with the First Amendment. Well, in the last 10 years or so, we got McCain-Feingold. What does McCain-Feingold do? It's campaign finance reform. Well, so many people say, well, money just abuses politics, and money makes it worse and corrupts the process. Well, there may be some truth to that. But in McCain-Feingold, my taxpayer group is not allowed to buy advertising within 60 days of the election to complain about a congressman who voted to raise my taxes. So I want to complain, but I'm a special interest group now, and I want to complain about my congressman raising my taxes. It's illegal. Well, they say that's bought speech or political speech that you paid for. That's different than the press. Well, they've got to pay for their printing press, and the Louisville Courier-Journal has to pay for their building. How is that any different? They're paying for their speech than me buying my speech for political advertisement. Well, some would say, well, this has happened before. Well, it has. It started a long time ago. It didn't take long. 1792, we had the Alien and Sedition Act. They put people in jail for dissent under the John Adams presidency. Now, we got rid of that, but we have had assault after assault, and we always have to be wary of these assaults. In World War I, we passed the Sedition and Espionage Acts. They put people in jail for opposing World War I. There was a farmer out in Montana that goes down to the feed store and says, I think that war's about a bunch of bankers. Those bankers are just getting rich off the war. I don't care if the Germans win. And he was just mouthing off at the feed store. Well, they put him in jail. The case goes through the courts, and the original judge made a good decision. He said, well, maybe we should put a test on this and say, if he has the ability to somehow allow the Germans to win the war, maybe he's a threat to the country, and there might be a question here. But if he doesn't have any ability to affect the war by mouthing off at the local feed store, maybe we shouldn't put him in jail. The Supreme Court reverses that, and he was put in jail. Another famous case in World War I has to do with freedom of speech. Eugene Debs, perennial socialist presidential candidate, was put in jail for 20 years by the Woodrow Wilson administration for complaining about the war. And finally, he lasted about 5 years in prison until Warren Harding pardoned him. But people were put in jail. And it's not that I'm for the Socialist Workers' Party. I think socialism is a failed ideology. But at the same time, in America, we allow people to say things, whether we agree with them or not. That's a fundamental freedom that we can't give up. And we need to realize that's under attack by our government, still through McCain-Feingold. And the Supreme Court has struck down part of McCain-Feingold, but there are still aspects of McCain-Feingold that may not have been argued and could still be struck down, but need to be struck down. Well, some would say, how did we get this far? How did this happen? What happened to our country? Well, I would say that we started out as a constitutional republic, where the Constitution restrained what a majority rule could have. And some would say, well, what about democracy? Isn't democracy a great thing? Shouldn't we just have democracy? Well, Jefferson and most of the founding fathers thought democracy was an anathema. Jefferson said, democracy is simply mob rule. 51% of the people could decide that 49% of the people don't deserve that right. If you happen to believe in democracy today, people use the term so loosely. If you believe in democracy, 51% of the people could reinstitute slavery. If you don't believe in inalienable rights or some absolutes that are protected by the Constitution, then what do you believe in? Well, the slippery slope